You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network.
Oh, hey, guys, this is Joe Sinnott speaking for the Epic Marvel Podcast.
Hello, welcome back to the Epic Marvel Podcast. This is Captain America, Episode 2A, covering a period of Captain America from 1968 to the beginning of 1969. I am your host, Kurtis Findley.
And I'm Drew Ivers, your Silver Age Captain America host.
And today we're going to be going through the second Captain America Epic Collection. It's called The Coming of the Falcon. We're only going to talk about the first half in this episode, and next week we'll talk about the second half. So even though this one's called The Coming of the Falcon, we are actually not talking about the Falcon at all in this episode. But that doesn't mean that we have nothing to talk about. Boy, there are some really great issues here from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think both halves of this book are definitely loaded in different ways. And the first half here is just absolutely full of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby goodness. So.
Yeah, and this, I really feel like Jack Kirby he's really firing on all cylinders. This is kind of like the peak of Jack Kirby. I hate to say the peak of his career because, you know, he had so many great different eras throughout his entire career. So, but this is especially good stuff. Like his drawing, his staging, his composition, the way he lays out his panels, the way he tells his storyline, he's all at the top form right here in these stories.
Yeah, and I think every issue in this first half here is just absolutely packed with kind of seminal Captain America moments and villains, and we kind of see, I don't know if I'd call this peak Silver Age Captain America, but it's pretty close. I mean, you have all of the pieces here that we're familiar with today. This is kind of where the book has definitely hit its stride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember in the last episode when we were talking about the first Epic Collection, it's like the stories were formulaic and we had a lack of interesting villains, and Kirby was still kind of finding his way, I think, and maybe Stan as well at the same time. But this one, yeah, like you said, just it's fully formed. They've hit their stride. They know what they're doing. The stories are engaging. Some of it's a little bit formulaic still, but I think that's just kind of the nature of comics in this era in general.
Yeah, they kind of, in a lot of ways, move past the spy stuff that was popular in the 60s, like the James Bond kind of stuff. It's still there. A lot of the S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff is still there, but you really get a better sense of Captain America and his rogues gallery here. And there's some great cameos, too, from other heroes.
Yeah. And this is also the period where Captain America gets his own book. Because up until this point, he was sharing a title called Tales of Suspense with Iron Man. And that goes up until issue number 99. And then for issue number 100, they decided to split the book. And so Captain America, they just retitle it Captain America number 100. And then Iron Man goes off into his own Iron Man number 1. And this was a result of Marvel's distribution deal. They switched distributors and they were allowed to distribute more titles per month because the previous distributor, who was actually the company that owned DC Comics, put a cap on on how many titles they could publish a month, which is why all of our heroes were doubled up in books like Tales of Suspense.
Yeah, so you start getting those 20-page stories instead of the 11-page stories, and it really gives Captain America some room to breathe in the last half of this episode, at least.
Yeah, and that does a couple of things. The first thing it does is allows Kirby to use much bigger panels, because when you're only restricted to, 10-page stories and you're trying to cram a ton of information in there, the way to do that is make your panels smaller so that you can show more sequences of events. But once we get into the 20-page stories, we get 4-panel pages, 3-panel pages, we get splash pages, we get double-page spreads. Like Kirby starts doing way more creative and innovative stuff just because he has the room to do it. And so this is a great thing, splitting these titles up.
Yeah, I think giving him that room, giving twice the pages essentially, and you still have obviously the first few issues we'll talk about here. You still have the first page, kind of intro splash page to grab your attention there. But yeah, like you said, there's some really great, and we'll get into it later, obviously, but there's some really great tech scenes and enemy bases and stuff like that. Where I don't know if Kirby liked drawing those things, but or if he was just given those to write, in the story. But based on how well he explodes them and details them, I feel like he had a lot of fun with those.
I hope so, because he sure does it a lot. You would think that if he didn't enjoy it, he would skimp on some of those details. I tell you, it was probably hard to be an inker or an embellisher for Jack Kirby because of all of that tech and that gear. It's just there's so much of it.
Yeah. Kirby tech is kind of its own. I wouldn't say subgenre, but it's kind of its own thing at this point, and
really
it's certainly lasting through in the Marvel universe and comics in general. So it's great to see some of the classic stuff here.
Well, let's talk about some of the story. What if readers are picking up this volume having not read Captain America Volume 1, what are the things that they need to know? Is there any plot points or ongoing stories that are carried over here?
No, not really. In true classic comics fashion, you can pick up any issue here and be pretty much caught up. Captain America, or Steve Rogers, is pursuing or infatuated with Agent 13, who we'll find out more about in these issues here. But yeah, most of these issues are a good starting point, and there are some story arcs that carry over. But in terms of the character, you can pretty much find out everything you need to know right away.
I think that is also sort of a result of the longer form storytelling that we get with Captain America 100. Because if you have the 10-page stories and you're trying to cram an A story and a B story in there, it's like there's not a whole lot of room to breathe. But once you have 20 pages to work with, then yeah, you can have some underlying subtextual stories or B stories that are carried through over multiple issues. And that's what we start to see here for sure. I don't have any listener comments today because, quite frankly, I forgot to post on social media asking for them. So I did that today, and we will have them for you next week in the next week's episode. But you can, if you want to leave a comment, then you can find the posts that have the cover to this Epic Collection asking for comments, and then I'll read them on the next episode. Just before we start, I want to say that this episode is brought to you by Dying Breed Collectors, and you can use the code Epic Marvel Podcast to save yourself 10% on any Epic collections that you buy. Just use that code in your shopping cart. And for the month of December, you can save 15% on Generation X Epic Collection Volume 1 with that code. So more power to you. Go for it. Okay, issue number 97, Tales of Suspense number 97. This is the Captain America segment, and it's called "And So It Begins," with a nice little line that says, reintroducing the Black Panther. This is actually Black Panther's second appearance, I believe. His first appearance being in the pages of Fantastic Four, but he made an impact over in that title, and they wanted to bring him back, so they thought, well, why not do it in Captain America? In this story, after a run-in with some thugs, Captain America is summoned to Wakanda via a high-tech ship that the Black Panther sent to New York to pick him up. And like we said, these are only 10-page stories, so not a whole lot happens. In fact, half of this story is Captain America fighting with these thugs and Black Panther, a couple of pages of Black Panther fighting with some thugs. And we only really get to the meat of the issue in the last couple of pages. Mm-hmm. Nothing really happens, but this is all set up because this is actually going to be a multi-part story going through the next few issues.
Yeah, it seems like you said, there's a few fights. We get reintroduced to Black Panther, as the title said there, and just all set up to get Captain America on the ship out to Wakanda.
We also get to see Agent 13. She is going to go undercover as a scientist, a German scientist, and we're going to see what happens to her in the next issue. But I like this right now because what it does is, of course, is reintroducing Black Panther. So we need to know kind of the basics of who this guy is. It's clear that he's a ruler of the country. It's clear that he's an excellent fighter because he takes out these guys in white and purple. And it's also clear that he is very rich and technologically savvy because he has this kind of futuristic technology. However, I find it funny that, Captain America gets into the cockpit of this ship and there's just a little keyboard with 9 buttons that have letters on them. And it's like you push the S for soar because the ship is going to soar away. It's like, that's not the letter or the word I would use to say go.
Especially when there's a G right there next to it.
Yeah, but I guess it's they do it so that not everybody can take off. They'll just push random buttons and won't
it's
get
a
anywhere.
security Wakandan security feature on the ship there.
Yeah.
It's a fun issue. I mean, they do quite a lot of telling, not showing, to kind of reestablish Black Panther. And the one line I liked was Captain America saying, "Well, when a man such as this speaks, other men listen," and that's something it's hard to convey in comics or in text. That gravitas that we of course know Black Panther has, but they really do try and set him up here as someone to be respected.
Totally, yeah, and I like how that plays out in the next few issues as well. One comment that I had is that on page 10 of the Epic Collection, this is on page 6 of the story, there's a scene where Captain America is getting checked out by the doctor because he was just in this fight. He got kind of beat up. And the doctor says, "I've never checked anyone in such superb physical condition." And at this time, Captain America, while they call him a super soldier, he doesn't really have superhuman strength. He is just the most fit person on the planet.
The peak human condition, yeah.
Peak human condition, like Olympic level athlete kind of a deal. And that's going to change by the end of the first half of this book once we get to an origin story a little later. But that is kind of how they're treating Captain America right now. He's not Superman. He doesn't, he knows how to throw people because of, judo training or whatever, but he can't just pick them up and hurl them into the sun or whatever, which is something that I think Captain America, well, not into the sun, that's an exaggeration, but, Captain America will later on definitely have superhuman strength and can run faster than the normal person and that kind of thing.
And he does have some nice pining on the couch there over Agent 13.
Yeah.
He's still pretty much unaware of who she is. He just knows she looks familiar, like his long lost love, as he says.
Man, there's going to be so much pining through these issues.
There is, and I think that's always been a struggle with Captain America throughout his history. Really, is what to do with Steve Rogers, and especially. It seems like he's gone through quite a bit of career changes and, they pretty much make him date someone now and then, but he doesn't have that quite like that hook of a Peter Parker or something other than Bucky. Bucky is kind of the hook that he has on a personal level. And so I think when it comes to his love life, it's always been a little bit of a struggle.
He doesn't even really have a supporting cast. Even through the years, I think during Grunwald's, when he was living in that apartment, he had a few people that he was in contact with and such, but he's always been kind of the loner character because he's this guy out of time and yeah, like you said, they make him date someone every once in a while, but that never sticks.
Yeah, and it fits. I think that he's probably overall less compelling as a character because of that. If you look at some of the bigger Marvel stars, but I think that's why they fill in the supporting cast or the featured cast here with Black Panther, and obviously Nick Fury is in most of these issues as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah, Nick Fury and Agent 13 are kind of his supporting cast at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's keep on going over to issue number 98.
Tales of Suspense 98 is titled The Claws of the Panther. And so Cap is on his way to Wakanda and ends up fighting Black Panther, where they then agree to team up. They're told of a destructive satellite weapon and get captured by Baron Zemo. And in the meantime, Agent 13 begins a nearby mission, coincidentally, and joins Zemo's group as a spy.
Okay, so this giant weapon in the sky, it's basically a giant magnifying glass. Because, you know, when kids would take the magnifying glass and get the beam of light and burn ants in the ground, that's
Yeah.
exactly what Zemo's doing to the people of Earth here. That's all it is.
Yeah, it says it can wipe out any area on Earth with a single withering solar blast, and it kind of looks like a jaw almost. There's like a mirror inside of it on page 21 of the Epic Collection, and it's kind of got horns and things hanging off of it, and
it's a great Kirby design.
it is. I like the extra planetoids or spots or whatever you want to call them in the background there. It kind of adds, obviously the Kirby dots are there up top a little bit, but yeah, it's a cool design. It's definitely menacing.
The cover of this one, it just says Cap versus the Panther. And there was a period around this time, I can't remember exactly when, where they were trying to distance themselves from calling Black Panther because of the political party that was kind of gaining some momentum at the time. And so they briefly changed his name to something. What was it? It was like Black Jaguar or something like that. I can't remember exactly. But it was like it lasted for 2 issues. Might have been in the pages of Avengers, and then they went back to Black Panther.
Yeah, I think in that period, I mean, obviously we'll see some of some current event stuff, and we saw a little bit in the last volume I know there's some hippies and some protests and stuff, and Captain America is always kind of touching on that. But yeah, I think Marvel was always a little afraid of the association, I guess.
Yeah.
So especially in the 60s here with all the violence going on in 68 and 69.
Now we see Zemo at the end of this issue, and he is a character that has been that we saw throughout the other issues or the other volume. Notable because he is the one who killed Bucky Barnes in World War II, which we found out in Volume 1. And so Captain America is going to face off against Zemo, and it's very, very personal for him.
Yeah, I think as we've seen in these issues, there's constant throwbacks and constant references to Bucky and the loss, and it's really the main thing driving Captain America at this point. It's haunting him essentially, and we see that in this book too. And the shocked face on the last page here, it really kind of says it all. It can't not him. We don't really see that reaction from heroes in general, but much less Captain America.
All of the Bucky stuff that happens in these issues is build up, and I don't know if Stan had this big plan overall, but it's build up to the second half of this book when we get to the issues by Steranko. And I don't know if the term PTSD was actually a thing in the 60s, or if that's a more recent diagnosis. But Cap definitely suffers from that here, because he's pulled out of. I can't even imagine something as traumatic as being in World War II, and then on top of that, your partner dies, and then on top of that, you wake up and you're 20 years in the future. It's like, whoa. So he definitely suffers from that, and it's something that he's going to struggle with through all of these issues that we're going to see here, dealing with his own nightmares and his own trauma.
And all the villains know it too. They all take advantage of it.
Yeah.
We'll see Dr. Faustus later in the book here, but they all know it. They all are able to exploit that weakness of his.
Which is a truly, that's a villain, more of a villain than a villain that robs banks, I think. Yeah. And it really is effective. It makes these villains, even Dr. Faustus, who's kind of a one-time not great villain, it makes him way more menacing than, the living laser, who we'll also see in this book, or the Trapster. Okay, Tales of Suspense, number 99, The Man Who Lived Twice. Of course, that's a reference, I think, to Baron Zemo. But Cap and Panther have fallen into a hole, and when they reach the top of the hole, they are faced with Zemo. And this issue is the one where they try to stop Zemo from using the ray, but they end up failing. This is a great classic situation that we have at the end here, where Agent 13, who is in disguise, she's undercover, working for Zemo. Zemo says, "You must prove your loyalty by shooting Captain America." What's she going to do? She's placed in this terribly awkward situation because she's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. She should do what she needs to do for the mission, but she also loves Captain America. So And I love that. I think that's the high stakes kind of drama that I love. It's why I think Squid Games is so popular.
Yeah, I think it's a heck of a cliffhanger here. The heroes, not just Cap, but Black Panther's subdued as well, and it's obviously it's coincidental that she's there, but it works really well. And Captain America, you can tell, is just I don't know, just the anguish here on her face, and then him laying on the ground. It's quite the image. And I also love the threat here. You have quite a few shots of the hypothetical laser gun shooting and destroying the U.S. They're Baron Zemo kind of talking over what would happen if he actually gets away with all of this. And you've got skyscrapers crumbling, and yeah.
What I really like about the way Captain America and Black Panther work together is that this is the first time that they've met, but they instinctively know how to work together as a team. And both of these characters, while they are commanding and know how to lead, they also don't have an ego. So they are willing to work with each other and let each other take the lead when they need to. There's some really, really, even though they don't succeed in stopping the Zemo from firing the beam, they still work really well together. And we're going to see that especially in the next issue even more. I really like the interplay between the two of them.
Yeah, and they both, Zemo even acknowledges their courage and their unwillingness to give up, even though they're basically defeated at that point.
Yeah.
They both will fight to the very end.
And that ends our Tales of Suspense issues. We're going to move on to issue number 100 of Captain America.
Yeah, so Captain America 100. We end on quite the cliffhanger in the last issue, and this one does not acknowledge it at all at first. We get a retelling of the origin, and I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we've had this before. But it's nice to see a few pages here dedicated in kind of a flashback or hallucination or whatever you want to call it. But it's a nice way, or a nice conceit for Stan and Jack to bring in some new readers and tie it into the current story as well.
Oh, definitely. It's important, I think, to have these two, because if they tout it very plainly on the cover, big premiere issue, like this is a big deal. He's got his own book. So yeah, if anyone is picking it up for the first time, this origin story is important to have, and I like how they segue it between the flashback and the story, the present day story, where Captain America was just he was unconscious and was having a flashback. Although, how can Captain America have the flashback of the scenes of Namor, with the Inuit people, because he was frozen in ice, he wouldn't have actually seen that.
And we like we were saying, it's 20 pages now, so they have the extra room to do this, to kind of have fun with that.
Yeah.
And so continuing on the main story here, Agent 13 chooses to miss her shot on purpose and instead goes after Zemo. Cap and Panther and Agent 13 start to begin their escape, and they end up fighting a robot bodyguard called the Destruction. They end up revealing Zemo to be an imposter, and all of his goons stand down after that. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. comes in to help save the day, and the Death Ray satellite ends up being brought down.
Yay. So I think being the very first long format issue, there's actually a lot of filler in here. It's like they spend it's mostly big fights, which is fine because Kirby is just explosive when it comes to this kind of stuff. And there is some fantastic art of Cap and Black Panther making good work, fast work of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like there's the big fight with all of the purple and white guys, and then there's the fight with what do you call him? What do you call the destroyer? The
Destruction. Yeah.
The Destruction. But through the whole thing, very exciting and a good conclusion to the story that's been 4 issues now. So that's quite something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the Destruction is kind of interesting. He looks like, a prototypical Kirby android or robot, who talks too much, as he gets his butt kicked. And yeah, it's just a good fight. I like the reveal of Zemo and the turn by all his men after he's exposed there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. He's an imposter? Well, he's not gonna pay us, so I guess we're out of here.
There goes nothing.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, the very end, seeing Panther acknowledge the Avengers and Steve kind of inviting him to join the team, and which I don't know. Have you talked about that issue yet in Avengers on the show where Black Panther joins?
No, not yet. But yeah, he comes. I think it's like the next month
Hmm.
in the comics that he. Oh yeah, maybe we have talked about that. I can't remember.
He ends up replacing Captain America.
Yeah, right. And yeah, they reference this issue in that one where he joins team.
In terms of the art here, I think you have a better eye for that thing than I do. I know, from what I understand, Sid Shores isn't really the most popular inker of Kirby's work. What is your opinion on him?
Well, I actually like a lot of the stuff Sid Shores does here. Now, I think it's an important distinction to know that Sid Shores is credited as embellisher here, which means that he wasn't just inking Stan's pencils, he was actually filling in a lot of the details.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, Kirby was working on a few books at the same time. So he's putting a lot of effort into things like Fantastic Four, and not as much time into something like this or, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., which he was doing around this time as well. And I can't remember what else. I think maybe, was he still on Ant-Man at the time or the Hulk?
He might have been, yeah.
He was doing a ton of stuff. But anyway, yeah, Sid Shores, he's got an interesting style because I think when we think about Kirby, we think big, blocky, lots of thick lines and thick shadows. And while Sid Shores does some of this, he also adds a lot more kind of the feathering kind of a lines.
The nuance, yeah.
Yeah, the nuance. If you go to the second page of this book here is page 43 of the Epic Collection. It's the third page of the story of this issue. And you look at the bottom panel of Steve Rogers, and he's saying, it's too late. You see this panel here?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see, the lines on his nose or the lines on his cheekbones. Just the fact that there are multiple lines there is something that Kirby doesn't usually do. He usually fills in his shadows a lot thicker. So I don't have the book on me, but I'd be interested to compare this panel to the panel that he draws in Avengers number 4 to see the different inking style and how that inker interprets Kirby's lines.
Yeah. I mean, even comparing it to the earlier issues here with Joe Sinnott on inks. Captain America, just looking at his nose, like on page 10 of the Epic Collection here, there's 3 or 4 lines making up his entire nose, and the mouth is much simpler, and there's definitely a lot more ink work here and lines done on by Sid Shores.
Yeah,
I didn't know that about the embellisher title. I kind of chalk that up to sometimes Marvel or Stan Lee will kind of say the amazing Jack Kirby or whatever, and I kind of thought, well, embellished is a colorful way to name an inker, but yeah. I wasn't aware there was a distinction there.
There actually is a purpose, and I don't know if they get paid more or something for being an embellisher, but yeah, so Sid Shores actually had more work to do than Joe Sinnott. Let's see if Sinnott is credited as inker or if he's credited as embellisher. Embellished by Joe Sinnott, so he was also embellishing here. Sinnott and Kirby, of course, are kind of the famous Fantastic Four combo. Mm-hmm. That's why we have Kirby's style the way it is, I think, so ingrained in our minds, is because of the work that Joe Sinnott did over Kirby's pencils. And later on, when Mike Royer would become Kirby's regular inker, he would use a lot of Joe Sinnott's style and techniques over Kirby. So yeah, Sid Shores is going to be the regular inker for the rest of these issues, except for 1 or 2. And when we get to those issues where it's different embellishers or different inkers, I'll point out some of the differences because it is quite interesting to look at in that sense.
Do you think so? This is obviously a landmark issue, and Marvel was aware of that.
Yep.
Calling it the big premiere issue and everything. I just find it interesting that in today's comics, I don't think either of the big 2 companies would have Jack Kirby kind of be rushed on a big issue like this. I think they would probably let him take his time and do whatever he wants to without having someone be an embellisher, so to speak. But this is obviously, coming out every month, and they have deadlines and everything. But
yeah, well, and the other thing is that, like we say, Kirby is working on multiple books.
Mm-hmm.
So if Yeah, I guess they would have had to like take him off of another title for a month, or maybe he was only doing breakdowns for a different title so that he could do full pencils for this one. But I don't know. I mean, Sid Shores and Jack Kirby are kind of the creative team for this book, so wouldn't you want them to be the creative team for the landmark issue as well?
Yeah, I just feel like it works. Yeah, I love the art in the book, but it feels like if you have an opportunity to have more Kirby and less embellishment,
Yeah.
you would take more Kirby, right? And obviously,
Right.
any Kirby is great, but a different era, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't know how much say he got in that or what. Yeah, I have no idea. Interesting. I would be interested to know if anybody out there knows if there's any reading on that subject or not. If he got to call the shots on this, how much he worked, or if he like preferred certain titles over others. Very interesting stuff. Oh yeah, the next issue here is number 101. Captain America 101, When Wakes the Sleeper. This is the beginning of a brand new storyline. The Red Skull is back, and he's going to awaken a fourth sleeper. And this is something actually maybe we should have mentioned at the beginning of the episode. In the last volume, he kept on sending these different sleepers, these big, giant, ancient beings or robots or whatever, and he would wake them all up and send them after the Captain America, or to destroy the world basically, but Captain America would always thwart them. So now this is a good setup. If there's a fourth sleeper, theoretically now there could be a fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth, and you could make this a storyline for like any time you want. It's like the landmark 400th issue could be like, oh no, Red Skull's back with another sleeper.
Yeah, there's always another sleeper, and they're all in different egg timers, just ready to pop out there.
That's right. But so he has to go battle in a deep sea cavern. He battles the Red Skull over in a deep sea cavern over this sonic key that he's holding on the cover here that apparently controls the sleeper. So they're gonna fight, and it's at the end of this issue where Nick Fury claims that Captain America has died. So that we find out why he says what he does in the next issue. But if you look on this last page, this picture of Jack Kirby again with more of the sketchy, a much more sketchy technique rather than the streamlined look of Joe Sinnott.
Oh, the Nick Fury, yeah,
The Nick Fury drawing,
yeah,
with the scruffy beard and the lines on his forehead and all that.
yeah. He looks a little more detailed, and you kind of see he looks older, I guess is the best way I would put it. Just kind of more weathered a little bit.
I like the look. Good one. There is some fantastic visuals in this one of just the destruction. There's so much destruction going on with the sleeper and everything, and just I really like the way that the two of them lay it out and use color to their advantage. If you look at some of these panels with the bright reds to show the huge destruction, like it stands out on the page. And you really don't need anything more than that. I don't know that kind of a technique would work to the fullest effect these days with all the computer coloring that people are used to, but it's very striking when you look at it from the 1960s perspective.
Yeah, I think page 77, the 16th page of the story, is just amazing. It's I don't know a better word than epic that comes to mind, but I mean just kind of the sleepers were one of my favorite parts of the first volume, and so I'm really glad they went back to it here, even though this one is kind of, I wouldn't say has less character, but he just kind of boils a little bit in this issue. We see more of him, but yeah, there's some truly great destruction, especially like page 80 with the earthquakes and everything being destroyed there.
That one panel at the beginning, there's so much going on because not only do we see the destruction of the shore, like of land, but we get the turmoil in the waves. We get the people in the foreground being rocked in their boat. We get the explosion in the background in red shooting up into the sky. There's actually tons going on in that one panel.
That could easily be a full page.
Yeah, it would be an amazing full page.
I love the cover on this one too. Obviously the Red Skull in the foreground there, but the sleeper, I prefer his look on the cover here. here, and I obviously they color things differently and draw things differently for the cover sometimes, but I think the shading there, the coloring is just beautiful on the sleeper.
Yeah, the covers get a different coloring technique than the insides, because the insides is colored with the four color printing process.
Mhm.
So you have to use the flat colors, but their covers, they use some offset printing, which allows gradients and such. So you do get like the really nice shiny metallic
Yeah.
color on him, and then you see like also the highlights on Red Skull's green jumper that he gets the yellow highlights and stuff. The covers always look nicer, that's for sure, color-wise at least. Now, there's actually a bonus feature in this Epic Collection, the original art for this cover, and Red Skull's face looks different. And it says, the note in it says that Kirby had to redraw Red Skull's face for the comic code because they didn't want it to be so grotesque looking. And if you look at the cover on the back, like it looks like how Kirby drew the Red Skull in the Golden Age. Are you familiar with those issues?
Yeah, kind of more of a lumpy, melty kind of face.
Yeah, they really play up the horrific skeleton face.
Yeah.
And and once he gets to the Silver Age here, Red Skull doesn't have the teeth, the same sort of teeth or the same sort of look. They make him a little bit more cartoony looking.
Yeah, and that's how, I mean, in the last volume, in volume 1 of the Epic Collection, that's how Kirby drew him as well, was kind of more cartoony. I think we talked about that a little bit, just I never really was a fan of the way Kirby drew the Red Skull in the Silver Age, at least. I think I guess he's more intimidating to me when he doesn't have the full white teeth and and obviously sometimes it's a mask, sometimes it's not. But yeah, I don't, I guess he was just kind of flexing for the cover a little bit there and
yeah,
trying to get away with one.
Oh well, too bad. At least we have the original art in this collection to see what could have been.
Good extra there.
Shall we move on to 102?
Sure. 102, Captain America 102 is called The Sleeper Strikes, and Red Skull, without the key, heads to the Isle of the Exiles, which is quite the mouthful. Cap gets ambushed by some assassins, but is saved by Agent 13, and he ends up fighting the destructive Sleeper. Cap begins to realize that Agent 13's love is causing the key to destroy the Sleeper.
Who programmed that? I don't understand. It's like the downfall to the Sleeper is the fact that she loves Captain America too much. It's actually the fear of losing him is causing the Sleeper to be wounded and stagger backwards and eventually just kind of self-destruct.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with magical keys, I guess anything can kind of happen.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if it's magic or tech or a little bit of both, but yeah, it's an interesting end or an interesting way to get rid of the Sleeper. And the story continues on after this issue, but yeah, your feeling for me, your desperate fear that I would die, triggered it off.
Yeah.
It's just something that we haven't really seen to this point, and I really appreciate it. You don't really, I mean, they up until this point in Captain America, it's pretty much whoever punches the hardest wins the battle, or whoever gets blown up first loses. So it's kind of a different take involving Agent 13 here. We know obviously they're outpowered physically.
Now, I often wonder if, because if you know the way that comics were made back then, Stan would have like a kind of a general idea of what he would want in the issue, and he'd write a couple paragraphs and send that to Kirby, and then it's Kirby's job, or the artist's job, to basically write the whole story and make it fit in 20 pages and lay it out and break it down, and then Stan would go and say, and look at the pages and add the dialogue over top of it. Mm-hmm. So if you take out all of the dialogue on this page, is page 101, which is the 19th page of this story here. And if you just look at the pictures, you have a picture of Cap being beaten up by the Sleeper in the top row, and then you have in the second row you have Agent 13 looking for Lorne, and then you have a bright flash, and then the Sleeper. It kind of looks like he's having a heart attack or something maybe. So Stan would be looking at just that, and I don't know if he's like asking Kirby, "What are you drawing here?" or if he's like, "Oh man, what is he doing? I got to come up with with the words that go along along with this, because this is also toward the end of Jack Kirby's time at Marvel, and I know that things go south between him and Stan, and so are they talking to each other? I know that it's often said that Stan Lee and Steve Ditko were not on speaking terms by the end of Ditko's time, and it was that the same thing with Kirby. There are a few instances in these issues where I feel like Kirby was just drawing and Stan had to kind of guess what Kirby was up to.
Yeah, I think you could there's probably 100 different ways to write the dialogue using the Marvel method, and especially on this page here. Her Agent 13's face in that fourth panel could really, it's obviously fearful, but I don't know if that, like you said, I don't know if that is a fear of losing Steve or just fear of the power she has in her hand or fear of the sleeper. It could be any of those. It could be all of the above. So I think the Marvel method works obviously overall, and yields a lot of dynamic pages here. But yeah, it's I don't know. I guess I'm conflicted on the end here. It works in one way, and then it also kind of just feels a little hokey in another.
Well, and this is also the Silver Age, so you have to kind of forgive a few things there.
Right. Yeah. I guess you're always reading through those hokey kind of lenses when you're looking at comics from this era, anyways. So.
Yeah. So in this issue, Captain America is outfitted with Stark tech. Tony Stark is actually mentioned almost in every issue of this half of the book, but we never see him once. And he even is a main part of the plot of an upcoming issue, but we don't see him. And so Captain America gets all of these little gadgets from Tony Stark, kind of James Bond spy style, right? And one of them's in his glove, and it's a thing that it allows his hand to fire a blast or something like that. Kind of a useless thing. He doesn't really need it, but he has it anyway. And I wonder if this is just the way for people who, I don't know if people who had a subscription to Tales of Suspense continued to get this book once it got split in two, but I wonder if, Iron Man fans suddenly started getting Captain America issues and they were like, oh man, I like Iron Man better. So they mention Tony Stark in every issue to make him somewhat a little bit relevant.
We'll have to look at the Iron Man issues and see if they did the same with Captain America mentions. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, there's definitely some cool tech in this one. I always loved the little the flying gizmos that Kirby does, the little individual I want to call them go-karts or something, the hover troop.
Yeah, right.
Kind of things. Those are always fun to look at. And then man, that splash page on page 92 of the book is just crazy. It's hard to even wrap your head around.
It's like that one panel we were talking about in the last issue, but this is the full page version of it. Just no water, but there's as much going on in this panel as the last one there.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the little guys in the foreground, and then just almost an atom bomb destroying who knows what, and filling up the page.
What's cool about this panel is that the flow of action makes your eye go down because you read that yellow box first, and then you read what these guys are saying at the bottom, but then the explosion brings your eye back up toward the top of the page. Mm-hmm. So you do this kind of a U shape. And I think most people will do it subconsciously because you kind of take in the whole page all at once, but you generally speaking, you're going to read the boxes first and then take a step back and look at the whole page as it now relates to what you've just read. So it's kind of a really cool layout.
What do you think of Agent 13's costume in this? It's kind of reminds me of like a Hellcat costume.
Yeah,
or an X-Men costume.
You're right. Yeah, Hellcat. I don't know if I can't remember, but yeah, just the weird colors. It's an odd combo because we have the yellow and the blue, but then we also have the green boots, which are kind of out of place. I don't know. I think that she's a secret agent, so she should be dressed like any other SHIELD agent or something, or undercover. So this kind of is not as inconspicuous as it should be.
Yeah, I guess if you're standing next to Captain America, though, you've kind of given up on being stealthy. But
yeah, I think so. Okay, so what I remember what I wanted to say here is one of the other things about the Marvel method is that in the last issue we saw that Captain America is dead. That's what Nick Fury tells Agent 13. Captain America is dead. And then we get into this issue here, and once we get into the action, on page 89, Sharon Carter just kind of, Agent 13 just pops out of nowhere, and she just says, I forced the Colonel to tell me the truth. My heart knew you were alive. I just knew it. Like, that whole plot was absolutely pointless. And that makes me think that Kirby, Jack Kirby didn't actually read the dialogue that Stan had put in the last issue, and he just put Agent 13 in the action for this issue, and Stan's like, oh man, whoops, now I have to dialogue this to get us out of that jam.
Yeah, I mean they do kind of finagle their way around it. Like on page 84, page 2 of the issue, they say, we told her you were dead. It was the only way to keep her out of this until we finished the job. It just doesn't really make any sense why you would try and keep her out of it. I mean, but yeah, it's just, and I love I don't know if this was a way to kind of reset the action a little bit, but I just love the opening shot of Steve Rogers in his robe here, just kind of reading the newspaper, getting everyone caught up, and resetting before moving on here. It's because it's obviously, I think this is a 4-part story here, roughly, but each issue can stand on its own, and there's a break point after each one.
This is the only issue that I think doesn't start with a big fight between Captain America and random thugs. All the rest of them seem to just get us right into the action right at the beginning.
That's what he's good at.
Actually, the next issue, it begins with dancing, so maybe that's...
Oh, right, their date, yeah.
Okay, speaking of which, let's go on to issue number 103. This one is called The Weakest Link. And Red Skull kidnaps Agent 13 and uses her as bait to lure Captain America to his base. And then he adds this strip of nuclear tape to the back of Captain America's neck that's remote detonated, and will make him it'll control him and make him do whatever he wants him to do. Now, little did he know that when he kidnapped Agent 13, he could have just kidnapped Steve right then and there, or taken care of him. And I love that exchange with the bad guy, because he sends his thugs to do it, and he's like, there was this tall blonde guy that was in our way, but we don't worry, we still got her. And he was like, tall blonde escort, that was Steve Rogers himself. Great, a little bit of comedy there, and we get to find out Sharon Carter's real name in this one.
Yeah, it's the first thing we read here. Kind of a nice little moment between the two before it gets ruined, but a little bit of a payoff to see them relaxing and enjoying each other's company instead of agonizing on whether they should be together, or having one of them be kidnapped for at least a few panels here. So yeah, this was a good issue. I liked a lot about it. I'm not the biggest fan of the cronies that Red Skull assembles here, the generals and world leaders and everything. I kind of just wish it was just the Red Skull, but they do a good job of playing off of him.
Well, and it's an interesting mix of characters too. There's some pretty bad racial stereotypes with the Asian character.
Yeah.
But all of these guys in the Exiles, they are all enemies of America. So we have people that represent Germany, of course, and Italy and Russia and China. They're all either the World War II villains or the current kind of Cold War communist villains that America is fighting at this time. And so they're all kind of getting together with the Red Skull to take down, of course, the symbol of America.
And the stereotypes are bad when they're almost unrecognizable here. It's just kind of so cartoony on that level. And
it's not just the Chinese guy, but like the Russian stereotypes and all of these characters are very stereotyped.
I think there's some really great moments in this issue. Obviously the big page here is it's page 111 with Cap underwater there. Yeah. Just such a great Kirby page. Great scene there. Is this one Sid Shores as well?
It is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I think this is probably my favorite issue out of the little mini arc we have here. Just the way it starts with the date and then leading into the cliffhanger at the end.
It's a great kind of a setup because we finished the sleeper, and now we're moving on to setting up the next focus, which is still a Red Skull story, but going in a little bit of a different direction. And we can see that he had a backup plan in case the sleeper didn't work, which it didn't.
I wrote down some notes about the nuclear tape as well. Just kind of the name stands out for sure. The other thing I liked was the electronically controlled kelp.
Yeah, what's
Which
up with
looks
that?
like a bunch of toilet paper for some reason. But I kind of have a little fear or paranoia of being underwater like that. So it really, really was effective for me,
Oh,
just kind
okay.
of being trapped underwater like
Yeah,
that.
sure.
So. Not that I'd ever be in the situation, hopefully, but it kind of plays to one of those primal fears. So.
Definitely. Yeah. And in the end of this issue, Captain America escapes, and we find out that Red Skull allowed him to escape. Check out this page on page number 122, which is page 19 of this issue, and this fight between Captain America and Red Skull. This page has 5 panels, and in 3 of them, you can't really see Captain America's face, and in another 2 of them, you can't see the Red Skull's face. And this is something that I don't know if I mentioned this in the last issue, but Kirby, when he does his battles, he will often obscure the faces of the characters, and I'm not sure why he does that, but it's kind of a regular thing.
Yeah, like you said, I think we do get a little Red Skull in the bottom left panel there, the 4th panel. But yeah, that 3rd panel is really, we see both their faces at the same time.
Yeah. And usually when you go to do a superhero battle, you're going to put these characters in the most dynamic poses. I mean, these poses are still dynamic, but you want to show off the costume, you want to show off the faces, you want to show off the power, but Kirby kind of fights against that technique and that expectation, I guess. And you'll see it time and time again, especially through these pages. All these battles, they'll have like these big white bursts of light obscuring their faces, or something like that. Like, it always happens. So you can keep an eye.
I wonder if that's part of Kirby's Marvel method, his own aspect of it, in terms of just maybe giving Stan the flexibility to fill in whatever kind of exposition or dialogue he wants, kind of giving him a blank canvas in terms of their expressions.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a very interesting thought.
Just guessing there. I don't know, obviously, but
no, but that's a good possibility, because when you can't see their faces, the dialogue could determine whether they are injured or in the winning position or whatever. Like it could go either way. Interesting.
You kind of, like we were talking about the last issue with Sharon's face, you kind of paint yourself into a corner when you have really, really strong expressions on their faces in terms of the dialogue. So.
Yeah. Yep.
So issue 104 is called The Slave of the Skull. And Red Skull is gloating to Captain America. He can't help himself, informing him of the nuclear tape that's causing him such pain, which also happens to be tied to a bomb. Returning to Exile Island, and the Skull's chief of staff, Steve, ends up fighting them one at a time and triumphs.
Okay, so this issue is embellished. Actually, it just says add a dash of Dan Adkins inker. So this one I think is just inked, but you can definitely feel a difference in the style. And I think, let's see, if you can go to page
much blockier.
Go to page 129. Yes, blockier, yes. Because I think that Sid Shores did round out Kirby's drawings a little bit, but look at this. Like, take a step back, try and take in the whole page, and look at how much black. Look how much black is on this page. It's not much. And then flip back to any of the Sid Shores pages, and look at how much black is on those ones. Sid Shores uses a lot more blocky shadows and blocky. He fills in a lot more of the undertones of the artwork. So if you look at Red Skull's face, for instance, like, there's barely any shadow on the face.
Yeah, a lot of the clothing as well. You can really see, if you flip to 130 and 131, you can see kind of every fold and wrinkle in the clothing. Whereas, Sid Shores would probably have blacked out a lot of the legs and the arms as well.
So it's interesting to see the different techniques there. Yeah, we get a really cool splash page with all of the different exiles. And what my favorite of these exiles is Cadavis Monarch of the Murder Chair. This is just a bizarre character. I assume he's disabled and has to sit in this chair. It moves around for him. He pushes buttons and there's like lasers in it and it flies around and stuff. It's just quite a funny thing. But then there's these other guys. Like one guy has an iron hand. They call him the Butcher of Bavaria, which I'm pretty sure is an actual person, I think, like in history, but I can't remember. And then another guy, a Russian guy called Krushki, and his thing is he crushes people, so his name is Krushki.
And these guys all pop up later in Captain America. I know for sure. Iron Hand does in some later issues here. I think in this book too, right?
Well, the cover, they're on the cover of this book with Falcon, so we'll see them in the Falcon issues. In the Falcon.
I know. I'm trying to remember the exact issue, but I know there was one in Brubaker's run where we get Iron Hand at least back in the 2010s, which feels long ago now. But it's a good way to kind of get a little piece of dialogue for each of these guys, and they're all obviously referring to each other by their names, so we can learn who they are.
And which country they represent.
Yeah, which country, which stereotype they represent here. I do wonder what Cadavis, he wants to be the first to attack. I wonder what his method of attack here looks like that he's all hyped up for. Because he gets, is this the one where he gets destroyed?
Yep, pretty quickly. Yeah. On page 141. This one guy with a scarf trips up Captain America. And then
the scarf guy.
And then he's like, oh, I can see again. And he takes out the murder chair pretty quickly.
Because he's only got like the little button that shoots the little two laser beams or whatever you want to call them. But there's a lot going on that chair there, kind of like a Metron from the New Gods kind of looking chair a little bit.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't make that connection. I wonder if something that he borrowed for later on.
Yeah, I mean, Kirby tends to copy himself a lot, and so I wonder if he said, "Oh, I remember doing that in Captain America." Get a deadly flying chair here.
Yeah. And then Captain America waves the flag at the very end of this issue. He's the hero for America. He's defeated all the communists.
It's a great last page. I think it's just a beautiful, beautifully colored and beautifully drawn. And you get Sharon taking off the nuclear tape finally.
Yep.
And Captain America making a little speech there at the end, as he does.
Yep.
It's a great resolution to the longer story arc here.
Yeah, and then we get to move into something that's kind of completely different. Captain America number 105, In the Name of Batroc. Dan Adkins is, again, our embellisher here. He's credited as embellisher here. And I think I like this one better than the last issue. There was something off about the last issue in terms of just the way his inking worked, but it looks a lot better in this one.
This one is extremely bright and clean looking to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's not a lot of missteps or rushed art that I could find. And like I said, I don't have the best eye for art or for the technical process, certainly, but every page on here looks pretty pristine to me.
Yeah, and if you take a look at like what I was saying about the blacks, he adds more to it. I just think he looked like he has more time. He had more time to work on this issue than he had the last one or something. But yeah, especially this double page spread that's in the second page here, we start off this issue in a flashback in World War II, and this is going to be important for the next few issues that Captain America is remembering his time with Bucky. And it's not even a flashback. It turns out to be footage from an old newsreel that they're gonna make into a movie. Check out this splash page. You could probably tell in the actual issue, but it's actually two separate pages. If you pull apart the gutter, you can see that there's a border down the center.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and I appreciate them having the foresight 60 years ago to do it that way, so we don't lose anything in the gutters here.
Yeah.
I'm sure they knew it would be collected like this one day, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they knew that we'd be podcasting about it.
Yeah.
In this issue, there's a seismobomb hidden somewhere in the city, and Captain America is tasked to find the bomb. Apparently, there's going to be 3 minor earthquakes, like little shakes, before it goes off. Before the big one goes off and destroys the whole city. But Batroc has enlisted the help of the swordsman and the living laser so that they can find the bomb first. Now, there is some weird storytelling in this one because Captain America goes looking for the bomb, and then also these three villains go looking for the bomb, and to the point where they're in a warehouse and they're like overturning crates and trying to find it. And then Captain America pressures the living laser to tell him where it is, and he says, "Go look in that manhole cover over there. It's over there." Like, what? How did you know that? And apparently that's exactly where it was. And then in the next page, Batroc is heading right for the manhole cover as if he knows exactly where it is too. I was like, that doesn't jive with what we just read a couple pages earlier.
Yeah, they're kind of just fighting their way to get to that manhole all along. For some reason, they're taking the difficult way. And I do like how Captain America sort of appeals to I don't know how much reason and logic the living laser has, but whatever he has, he's convinced by Captain America to tell him where it is. So kind of a different tact that Steve is able to take there.
Yeah. Now, they color Swordsman blue in this issue. And typically he is kind of a more purpley blue. Like he's not purple like Hawkeye is purple, but he's definitely more on the purple side than the blue side. And so I thought
kind of a lavender color.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see here, and I don't know if I'm assuming that the original issue colored him like that, otherwise they wouldn't have used that color here. But I wonder if it was to make him stand out more against Batroc, who is also purple.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, you've got two kind of mustachioed villains here, and you need to differentiate them a little bit.
And they both have orange accents.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, coloring Swordsman blue would definitely set them apart. Now, did you know that Marvel had and DC, Marvel and DC both kind of had a color theory way back in the 60s where they would color all of their heroes in primary colors, red, blue, and yellow, and then all of the villains would be secondary colors like green and orange and purple.
Yeah, I think you especially see that on the Spider-Man villains, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing is here. Like if you look at Living Laser is green and orange, Batroc is orange and purple, and Swordsman is supposed to be orange and purple as well, but they got him blue, which actually sort of clashes with Captain America because Captain America is blue. So it's like they usually try and make them stand out a little bit more apart from the heroes, but for whatever reason he's blue in this one.
It's a good one-off issue, I think, and I always like Batroc. I think he's just kind of a fun. I guess he's a villain. I would probably call him, a mild sort of villain, just a mercenary, I guess.
Yeah.
But I always enjoy his appearances in Captain America, and then in the movies as well. I think they did a good job bringing him to the screen.
Yeah, they did a really good job. I especially liked his role in, even though it was small, his role in the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series. I thought it was nice.
Yeah. Kind of they at least get the purple jacket on him and the accent. Those are the most important parts, I guess.
This issue opens up with the double page spread, like I mentioned, about Captain America and Bucky fighting in World War II. And Captain America is obviously really distraught by seeing this. And this is some of the PTSD that I was mentioning before. And you have to wonder, these guys, like, it's for them, this happened 20 years ago. But for Captain America, it was like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep on opening these wounds and don't realize how much it's affecting Steve Rogers.
Yeah, I think obviously he's a tough guy and everything, and they're kind of insensitive in a way, like you were saying. I mean, they're saying, "Oh, too bad the kid didn't make it."
Yeah, exactly. It's very blunt.
Yeah, I think it's easy to be like that when you're just seeing it on the screen here. But yeah, it's going to be brought up a lot, and I think is it the third volume of the Epic Collection where is that the one entitled "The Return of Bucky"?
Yep, that's right.
Or whatever. Yeah, I think obviously even up through Brubaker's run with the Winter Soldier stuff, it's a mainstay of Captain America for sure.
Yeah, it is. Okay, 106.
Captain America 106 is called Cap Goes Wild. And Captain America in this one fails to prevent some commandos, I think they're called, from stealing a life model decoy file for something called Operation Replica.
What could that mean?
Who could say? Yeah, I think this is interesting issue. The commandos are not my favorite design, I guess. We get some more stereotypes in this issue
Yep.
for sure, with an actual appearance by Chairman Mao.
Yeah, right on page 174.
Yeah, and I'm not the most qualified person to be speaking on this. I don't think it's necessarily a disrespectful portrayal of Chairman Mao,
No,
but
I
some
don't
of
think it is.
the henchmen,
Like the henchman on the first page,
yeah,
with the big, Kirby draws him with the big buck teeth and such.
uh-huh.
Yeah, that's not as great. But yeah, Chairman Mao actually looks like he's instantly recognizable. They don't play up the stereotypes on the caricature.
And he had been in an issue of Thor, I believe, before this. I feel like it's more Captain America's wheelhouse, I guess, to have these political figures, certainly in the Golden Age with Hitler and fighting Nazis. But communism here in the Cold War was a hot button issue, like we saw at the little speech at the end of the prior issue, or the one before that. And so I think you're kind of seeing that transition of Nazis being a 20-year-old, 25-year-old villain at this point, going into something more modern for readers.
Yeah, well, I think that's very telling when the team that Red Skull put together is called the Exiles. Like they're old. They're washed up. They're not the threat that they are anymore. And so now, we're moving on to the red countries like Russia and China.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the first time we see a kind of decoy Captain America in the comics here?
Maybe.
We had a brain-controlled one, right, in the last Epic collection.
Right.
And so there's some good fight scenes here of Captain America fighting himself, so to speak.
I thought that the cover was not great. Like, it's kind of a classic Kirby kind of a cover, really playing with perspective and playing with the anatomy and such. But I couldn't tell that was Steve Rogers on the cover.
No. I think the hair is a little too orange.
That's part of it. Yep.
Yeah, and his face is kind of obscured here. It's not really clear that it's supposed to be himself. My first thought was Kamandi from DC Comics, almost kind of that wild boy look.
Yeah, I was gonna say Kazar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, and the shield, I don't really care for the way the shield looks either. It almost looks floppy in a way, just kind of like it's bent in the middle, sort of. Just different kind of perspective on this one.
And it's not sitting on Captain America's arm at the right spot, because it should be either buckled to his forearm. Like his hand is right in the middle of the shield, which I don't think is where it's supposed to be. But anyway, that's this whole issue was inked by Frank Giacoya, and there is a very, very big difference in the way that Frank inks, because he uses very, very thick lines. So if you go over to, let's say, page 181 and look at this picture of the fake Steve Rogers, and look at how thick, like there's a thick black outline on the top of his hair and along his shoulders, and all of these black, like it's very, very Kirby. I think he's following Kirby's pencils quite accurately, because all of this shading is very, very Kirby type shading. But Frank uses a very thick brush. Go over to page 187, which is the last page of this issue, and look at the TV guy. Just the outline in the fourth panel of his clothes. Very, very thick black lines there. It's all through this issue, which gives it a very dark look. Everything looks a lot more maybe muddy a little bit.
I think especially on the decoy cap too, it's really used to good effect. Just the
I'm not
muscles,
saying it's bad.
His muscles and his face there, like you pointed out, it's all that extra weight and ink on him really makes him look more intimidating, and kind of makes him look a little scarier than Cap does.
This was an interesting story for me. I actually really liked it because it there's a movie mogul, and he has captured, or sorry, he's decided to take the Chinese government up on an offer to use his movie studio for their nefarious plot with Captain America, this fake Captain America, in order to gain money for an operation that his brother needs. And we see his brother in this issue. And at the end of the issue, spoiler alert, the brother ends up ends up dying, helping Captain America, and so the movie guy, he committed treason all for nothing because now his brother is dead. So I thought that was a nice kind of a twist, because I think the expectations we have with seeing movie tycoons is that they're selfish, they're greedy, that kind of thing. But this guy was actually trying to do it for a noble purpose, to save his
Yeah,
brother.
and yeah, he kind of has a little realization or change of heart there at the end. He's still kind of stereotypical or cartoonish, I guess. Just kind of the greedy.
He has the look.
He's got the
back
look.
hair or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Yeah, he's got the look. But for a good cause, I guess.
I was also kind of mad at Shield in this one because they purposely sent Cap in there to defeat this LMD that they actually knew the Chinese, like they let the Chinese government build the LMD because they wanted to make them test the experimental tech so that they wouldn't have to be accountable for the damage it could possibly cause. It's like, man, that doesn't seem like S.H.I.E.L.D. Or does it seem like S.H.I.E.L.D.? Maybe it does seem like S.H.I.E.L.D., but it was a bad move. And who is this weird guy with the cigarette and the top and the fancy hat? He appeared in the last issue, and he's in this issue too. And or did he appear in the last issue? I can't remember now.
Which guy are you talking about?
This guy who shows up at the end, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent in this issue.
Oh, right.
He just kind of pops out of nowhere. It's not Nick Fury, where every other issue it would have been Nick Fury, but we don't get a name for this guy. He just appears in this issue, and then he disappears. Or I think he's in the next issue as well. But he has no real purpose except for giving Cap his orders. But why isn't it Nick Fury?
Yeah. They could have. Yeah, it could have easily been him. And just what's he call himself? One of Fury's fanatics.
Yeah, right.
The another thing I thought was interesting was the fake movie costumes on page 177 and the sci-fi set and props and everything.
Yeah.
It reminded me of did you ever see that movie Argo?
Oh no, I didn't.
With Ben Affleck. So it's based on a real story, and Jack Kirby drew the concept art. So they were making a movie to get some of these Americans that were stuck in Iran. And so the CIA commissioned Jack Kirby to make some fake sci-fi movie art as part of their cover story for this fake movie. And so the girl on page 177 in panel 2 there just really kind of reminded me of that. And you can see some of that art online. If you just Google, Argo Kirby art, it'll pop up. But there's some similarities there. And it makes me want to see one of these movies, one of these fake movies, either from this issue or from Argo.
Yeah. Totally. Okay, so let's keep on going over here to issue number 107, If the Past Not Be Dead. And we're back with Sid Shores. Captain America is getting treated for nightmares and hallucinations. He's starting to see a psychiatrist named Dr. Faustus. We've mentioned him earlier in this episode. Dr. Faustus is giving Cap some medication to help him, but it ends up that it's actually the cause of the hallucinations. And this is actually, I thought this was a really great issue. I liked the mystery and kind of the descent into madness. And I love the Mission Impossible twist at the end where Captain America takes off the mask he's wearing. But I think the whole thing would have been more effective if we didn't know that Dr. Faustus was behind the whole thing from the very beginning.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I think if he was played as a standard therapist, it would fit with what we've been seeing Cap go through to try and get some help. And but yeah, he's pretty much a straight cartoony victim or a villain from right after he hangs up the phone with Captain America.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even if we didn't know that he was the one behind it, we would still know because of, the tropes of storytelling. We'd be like, oh yeah, that guy's a bad guy. But I still think that being kept in the dark is a better storytelling than laying it all out like they did in this one. So, but still, I still enjoy this one a lot. I thought it was good. I like Sid Shore's details. Like he puts a lot of detail into like the old man Captain America face and a lot of the expressions and such. Just got that sketchy, a lot more sketchy kind of detail that we have seen in the previous issues. But
yeah, there's some pretty scary imagery in this one. You've got Bucky on page 191, page 3 of the story. Screaming at Cap, saying it was your fault. You've got, like you said, old Cap his face, and then there's just the concept, like we talked about earlier, of what they call it, a nightmare pill they were giving him every night, or a nightmare tablet. The psychological aspect of it versus Captain America fighting someone with his fists is interesting. I mean, he does fight the Shield Plastoid number 427, just because we have to have some action here. Have you read any of Rick Remender's Captain America run from a few years ago?
No, I haven't.
There's spoilers if anyone hasn't read it, but he loses the super soldier serum and ends up turning into an old man, essentially.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of some interesting callbacks from that run to this era. I think there's some good sci-fi stuff in that run.
I think the most harrowing scene here is when Captain America is on the couch and he's being held down. He thinks he's in prison. He's being held down by the Nazi guards and they start shooting him, but it's all just fake.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the thing you were saying before, is this guy is completely exploiting the PTSD that Steve Rogers suffers from, and really, really taking it to the extreme. He's pinned down by Nazi soldiers and he's being shot by them. Is how bad can you get? And then they pull out Bucky and they bring Bucky back. They try to trick him into thinking that he's still alive.
Yeah, I think it's just a great way to get to Cap. I mean, you see the terrifying face there on page 198 of the soldier shooting him.
Yeah. It's a great page. The whole page I love.
Yeah, and then just right after that, he's totally defeated. I mean, we haven't really seen him look tired and haggard like that before. I mean, his suit's all ragged and his tie is loose, and he just looks like looks like a different person almost.
But this issue also really sets up what's going to happen in the next half of this book with this Jim Steranko issues. We as readers, I think, really need to know how affected Steve is by Bucky's death in order to move forward into this next chapter, which we'll talk about in the next episode.
Yeah, Steranko is obviously very good at sort of the trippy mind game stuff, so it'll be fun to talk about those.
Definitely, yeah. Okay, issue number 108 is called In the Snares of the Trapster. And we're going to get another appearance from a B-level villain named, he used to be called Paste Pot Pete, but he's now going by the name The Trapster. And the Trapster has kidnapped Sharon to try and get some information about something called Project Fireball. And Captain America finds out from that weird S.H.I.E.L.D. agent that just kind of pops out of nowhere from the last issue. So he's on the rampage. He's going to find Sharon. And that's kind of what this whole issue is. He comes to the Trapster's lair, and it's a series of death traps. And so this is a classic comic book sort of setup where the hero has to get through a whole bunch of traps in order to get to his goal.
Yeah, it's a very, like you said, classic kind of very comic booky, even right up to the very end, with the quote unquote twist ending of the life model decoy of Sharon. It was all kind of a setup for her to I used Tony Stark's, another mention of Tony Stark. I used Tony Stark's chemical tubes to dilute the Trapster's paste supply.
Yep.
And then I guess at that point it's all supposed to click for you, and you're supposed to say, oh, that all those traps, it made sense now. So not my favorite issue. What do you think?
Not my favorite issue either. I also think that Captain America had a complete change of heart in regards to Sharon. So one thing that we haven't talked about is that in the past few issues, Captain America has decided that he doesn't want to have anything to do with Sharon anymore because he doesn't want to lose her like he lost Bucky.
Mm-hmm.
So he's constantly like, no, I can't call her. No, I can't meet with her. I can't go see her. I'm not going to do that. But in this issue, even before he gets the word that Sharon is in trouble, he's like, what does he say? Maybe I'd like a life of my own and a time of my own. Time to find the one girl in the world who means something to me. And he's like, I'm going to go talk to Sharon. So it's kind of wishy-washy here. But yeah, the Trapster's never an interesting villain either. So that's not... we have a few things not working for us here. It really did feel like kind of a filler issue compared to the nice epic stories we've been getting.
Yeah, it's fine. I think there's some great moments in it individually, but as a story, I think if you're worried about the overarching plot here and kind of the things we've been talking about, I think this one is relatively skippable.
Yeah.
But is some good art. I mean, I think Kirby and Sid Shores do as good of a job as they can trying to make the trapster menacing on page 215 there in the full page panel. But
Right.
and I don't know. There's something about Sharon or the life model decoy being glued there that's not really that exciting to me. I mean, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, she's stuck in a pile of white glue. So
That's the thing, is that this is a villain whose weapon is just glue, and you could say that Spider-Man is the same way, but for some reason Spider-Man's way cooler.
I mean, yeah, if your biggest threat is paste, I just and that's they always lean into that in the Fantastic Four when he's Paste Poppy, like he's always kind of a joke a little bit, but it's a bit much for the whole issue. You can only read Paste so many times before it kind of loses its effectiveness there.
That's right. Okay, the final issue we're going to talk about today is Captain America number 109. This one, right on the title, says The Origin of Captain America. And I love this cover of him bursting through the newspaper. It's kind of like ripped from the headlines. This is new and exciting. And so we are going to learn about him. This whole issue takes place in 1944, and there's a little bit of a wrap up at the end where we find out why this story is being told. But this is very interesting because we've seen Captain America's origin story a few times now. It was told, of course, in the Golden Age, and it was told right at the beginning of, or not right at the beginning, but in one of the issues in the other volume. So this is kind of maybe, I think, the third time we're getting an origin story, and it's a little bit different. One of the biggest differences is that I think in the Golden Age, Captain America was injected with a serum, and in the last volume, he drank a vial of the serum, but in this one, he's bombarded with, they call it Vita rays. And that's what turns him into Captain America.
I'm glad they have this in here. And this is Kirby's last issue as the regular penciler for. I think there's one more at 112 he does, but which we'll talk about next week. But until he comes back on the book in the 70s. But it's a nice kind of send off for Kirby, I think. But yeah, it's good to see another take at it, even though I feel like we've seen it quite a few times already between this epic volume and the first one.
Yeah. They also changed the name of Dr. Erskine, who is the guy who created the formula. They call him Dr. Reinstein in this one. So again, this is another issue that's setting up the importance of Bucky, because we find out about how he met Cap and find out about their camaraderie. And then with this last page here, bringing us back into the present, and we find out this is Steve has been telling Nick Fury about his past. It just kind of tells the story again about how much Bucky is important to Captain America. All of this whole first half, I think, is leading up to what's going to happen in the next issue.
Yeah, I mean, they, like you said, it's the ending where they kind of bookend it with him telling it to Fury in the modern day. He says, he tells Steve, I'd go out and have a few laughs, and Steve says, well, I don't really know how to. So, like we've seen with Dr. Faustus issue, he's obviously struggling with this, and I'm pretty sure they weren't calling it PTSD, as you were saying back then. But whatever they were calling it back then, he's dealing with it still. And I think I'm like I was saying, I'm really glad that Kirby took another crack at this, just to kind of get some of those moments down. I especially like the skinny Steve parts where he's just kind of tiny and getting checked out. That was always my favorite part of the origin.
I think that's something that's new to this part as well. I don't think, because in the other origins, I think they just we are introduced to Steve because he enters the room where he's about to get the super soldier serum. We don't see anything of Steve before that. I think this is the first time when we actually see that he tries to enlist for the army and they reject him because he's just not strong enough, which is a very important part to his origin, but not something that was in the original story.
Yeah, he kind of gives a little mini speech, saying how he hates war and senseless bloodshed, but he can't stay behind. mind. He wants to go out there and fight and support his friends and the country, and just wants to do anything. And so I think, like in the first Captain America movie, or the first Marvel Cinematic Universe one, they did a good job showing all that. Showing all of his attempts to just do anything, to volunteer. And that's really the core of his character.
Definitely. My favorite panel is on page 236. It's page 6 of this issue here, where we get this superimposed Steve Rogers face with the memories in the background. It's a very, very cool setup, and it's also used as a bridge from the past to bring us from the past into the present.
Yeah, I think there's just some really great moments in this, and that's one of them. That almost we'll talk about Steranko next week, obviously, but that's I have to imagine he was influenced by that kind of Kirby art. Obviously Kirby was a great influence, but to see them in back-to-back issues like this, the overlays and the transparency is just really cool.
I would like to think that Jack was also influenced by Steranko, because this is not something that he usually does. This overlay is not a typical Kirby move. We haven't seen it all in this book, but it is something that Steranko would do.
I was thinking the only time I remember it in the issues we talked about today was the Sleeper Underground, and it looked way hokier in that transparency effect, where it just like they colored the Sleeper brown to show that he was underground.
Well, and that way even served a different purpose. Like they were using they're using the panel as a cutaway to see underground, but this one is like to try and visualize memories, but also as the transition between the two timelines. Like it's very effective. The other thing I really like about this is the colors, because you have the memories in the very vivid reds and yellows, and then the present day in the blues and purples to show that it's quiet in that apartment where but Steve is remembering the incredibly loud war. Visually, I just love it. I think it's great.
I think it's a good. I think you picked a good stopping point here too, just in terms of and I'm sure Marvel did as well with the transition here to the Steranko issues, because it is quite a change visually and stylistically, and I think we're kind of been leading up to that point the whole time here in a lot of ways, and this is a good kind of transition issue to that.
Yep, definitely. And I'm really looking forward to seeing, because I haven't read these Steranko issues before, so
really?
Yeah, I'm really excited to read these. I'm really looking forward, because I've flipped through this book so many times. Like, oh man, I just want to read, but I know we're going to talk about it, so I don't want to read it yet. And it's like, I'm very, very looking forward to it. And then knowing that Romita comes after that, and Gene Colan, like there's some really cool stuff coming up here. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's definitely a packed book. I think this one, and obviously the title of the book mentions the Falcon, which we'll see next week. There's a lot to like in this book, and I think if I had to recommend between this one and the first Epic collection, this one might be a little better overall, just in terms of the consistency so far.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'll save my judgment till after I read the second half of this book. But so far I'm liking it a whole lot more than the short form storytelling they were doing before. So yeah,
getting that room to breathe really makes a big difference.
Perfect. Well, let's wait until next week when we can talk about the second half of this book. And I hope everybody out there listening is able to read along with us and is enjoying our conversation so far. Thanks, Drew, for being a part of this episode. It's been a while since you've been on the podcast, so it was great to have you back.
Oh, thanks, Kurtis. Anytime.
So, everybody, I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.